joining us. This is the AM show. Today we're coming to you from the Labadi Beach Hotel. There's a special program here that we're covering. Is a graphic business, and Stanbic Bank organizing a breakfast meeting is heavy on agriculture. So on AM Talk right after sports, well, we'll bring you a conversation on financing agri. I'll be engaging the managing director of Stanbic Bank and Mr. Kenneth Ashiwe, who is managing director of the Graphic Communications Group Limited. They will be my guests on AM Talk. And there will be speakers for this particular function that we're going to be covering live right here on JoyNews. So that live telecast of that program, the special breakfast meeting, and the theme is securing the economy with agriculture. Speakers include the Agriculture Minister, Dr. Owusu Efriye Akoto, also Dr. Al-Hassan Yakubu is former Deputy Minister of Agriculture, Dr. Abu Sakara is an agriculturist, and Mr. Edward Kariwa is General Secretary of the Agric Workers Union. They will be speaking on this theme, securing the economy with agriculture. That will be brought live to you right here on JoyNews. Really, that's why the AM show is at the Labadi Beach Hotel. It's a fantastic venue for this conversation. And Joseph Akable has joined me right here as well. Joseph, good morning.
Good morning, Mavi.
Yeah, you're good?
I'm very well.
How I wish we could be doing the AM show from here, like every day.
Well,
it's refreshing.
I don't want to comment on that, but I mean, certainly the change in environment helps a bit. It gives our listeners a different...
You're saying change is good. Is that what you're saying?
It's not always good. It's not always good. It has to be positive change. It has to be positive change. This one is positive change.
Okay, let's do the newspapers.
Well, so this morning, let's start with the front page of the Daily Guide. The first story here says, no job cut at ECG, Nana assures. Some members of the TUC met the president yesterday, and he gave that assurance. Moneycracy rules in NDC is coming from the Kwesi Butcher report. Yesterday, we talked about the fact that it appears the Daily Guide had abandoned it. But that is
They've gone right back.
They've gone right back. They just left it for a single day, and they are back to it. 3 soldiers arrested for stealing gold, and child rapist grabbed. That story we carried out. But let's start with that one had to do with the ECG workers. This is like the 100th time I'm hearing either the president or the energy minister assuring that there will not be any job cuts. But the workers still appear a bit dissatisfied. And what is interesting is that later today at about 9 a.m., an Accra High Court will be giving a ruling on application made by workers of the ECG. Record the arguments for severance package, saying that because they are being transferred from public workers to the private sector, they want to be given some money. So the court will be ruling on that. But they are still engaging government, and that assurance is coming that there will not be any job cuts. Amazing. They should be satisfied, shouldn't they?
Well, I think they've been in the business for long, so they know what they are fighting for. I think they know something that we perhaps we don't know. Yeah. On the surface, you think that, okay, what are you asking for? Because even though somebody else is going to take over, you still have your job.
But their posturing is a bit strange. I mean, from the onset, they were against this whole bit about the concession agreement. From the onset, in fact, they were against it. Now they conceded, then they started making various demands. They said they want tenure of secure tenure. They were given some 20 years, was later moved up a bit, and still they talked about severance package. So if you look at the trend, one will assume that it may not necessarily be a case of they knowing what we don't know, but they want something more because they are against the entire agreement.
It will be interesting to see what the court rules, the judgment of the court later today. And I know that you'll be in court later for us.
Definitely.
Sure.
But the child rapist has also been grabbed. That story that we broke, Maxwell Akbaba brought us that story. We are being told that that gentleman is also a juvenile. Yeah. So it makes it a case of 2 juveniles engaged in an act. So those who are looking at stiffer punishment, you need to change your thoughts about that a bit. The other issue too is that it means that we will not have access to know who that individual is because the person has to be tried according to the Juvenile Act. Correct. So they can't publish a person's name. Anything that helps people identify that individual cannot be put out there.
I think the point is we really do not care who the person is, but if the person is tried, I mean, if there's justice, that's all we're calling for. There should be justice. And this little girl plus her family should know that justice has been served. Then everybody will be satisfied. That's
the good thing about the juvenile one also is that it has to be dealt with within 6 months.
Okay.
So
that will be a quick trial.
A quick trial.
Okay.
We may not have access to the fine details in terms of the daily coverage, but what we'll know is that at the end of 6 months, there will be sentencing quickly.
Oh, so this is almost like a closed-door session. No reporter will be in there.
The court decides to allow someone in, but it's very in rare circumstances that they open up to allow people to cover the juvenile case, because once you come in, you're able to identify that individual. So more often than not, they protect them.
I think what is sad is also coming out of this constituency, and that was in our AM news a bit earlier, is a young lady who's also been raped brutally. Yeah, and that's just unfolding.
And Maxwell tells me that, I mean, quite a number of stories of rape have been reported in that area. I just hope it's not a case of a ripple effect of a sort of thinking. You know, when this whole bit about the Nchobasi happened, you realize that we had reports that sort of suggest that the area had a trend. So it cannot be necessarily accurate. It could be that when something happens here in Labadi, because it has happened once, you go back and identify past events. Whilst rape may be happening anywhere else in the country. So we should be cautious not to create that impression that that town is noted for defilement.
I agree with you. I agree with you. All right, so you're through?
That's with the daily guide,
All right. Let's do the Daily Graphic newspaper. 25% on the front page of the paper, 25% private varsity tax to go, according to the Vice President. This is something that the private universities have been calling off. Certainly will be good news, but is 25% enough? Is it what they were looking at? Details of that story in the paper. Also, President worried about events in Togo will sustain farmers' interest in cocoa industry despite drop in world cocoa price, according to CEO of Cocoa Board, Mr. Joseph Boahin Edu. Also on the front page, energy sector bond yields 3.4 billion Ghana cedis. And on the back page of the Daily Graphic, Ebri chiefs released 20,000 hectares of land to government to support one district, one factory policy. You can grab the paper and read all the details. Today we are at a graphic event, so you don't want me to give you more than I can give you if we want to continue to do this program here today. So that's it for the Daily Graphic newspaper.
The Ghanaian Times reports this morning, if I get on the front page, there's a photograph of President Akufo-Addo, and it says privatization of ECG under Compact 2. No worker will be worse off, President assures. 16-year-old boy remanded for defiling girl, and 4 killed, others injured in clash between Fulani herdsmen, butchers. Details of that story is on page 3. It's one story that keeps running through almost every time.
Let's do the Finder now. And on the front page of the Finder newspaper, you'd find the banner headline, TUC tables 7 key issues to government, including redundancy package for ECG workers. So same story, Joseph, that you were talking about a while ago in the Times, I think. Cocoa farmers must earn more from their toil, according to the president. And it's interesting how 2 of the papers are picking on cocoa when we're definitely talking about the bigger sector, agri here today at Labadi. Togo crisis, Nanado met Fore 10 days ago. The paper is reporting that story is on page 8. I'm curious. So how did that meeting end? And it was very quiet. So on page 8, President Nanado held a closed-door meeting with Togo's President Fore Gnassingbé some 10 days ago over the political crisis in that country. The president, who revealed this, said the meeting was aimed at bringing the current crisis in Togo to a closure. I think one of the things that we're getting to know from that meeting is the fact that the Togolese president has promised, did make a promise. So we will see if the protest, the tension, the things happening in Togo will change in the coming days.
No, so, I mean, I was wondering what kind of, it cannot be an appeal that the president engages the Togolese president, the reason being that both countries are sovereign countries. And the politics of Togo makes us understand that the 2 families have been in power for close to 50 years.
Exactly.
So this is not an individual who you say that he's open to ending his term. It doesn't seem to be the case, and that is why when people protest in their country, they are being arrested. If they have to protest in Ghana, there's some 26 Togolese who were picked up over the weekend. So it's good our president has reached out. Once there's anything happens in Togo, there could be a spillover into Ghana.
Definitely.
So it makes sense that he engages in, but we just hope that the president listens to the people. Sometimes you have to leave when the applause is loud.
Well,
but this time the applause has even run out.
There were processes in place as well. They were trying to make certain changes, to their laws to get a fixed tenure for the president. I feel that the people should be looking towards that, because you can't just hit the streets and protest and the president will resign based on that.
I feel that elections are not free and fair. I'm asking because if you don't have a term limit and someone is not a good president, vote him out. Unless perhaps you think that because you can't vote him out.
Masa, this is Africa. Okay, so there's another story in the final newspaper that I want to share, and then you can come in a bit later. It says Minister cautions public against sharing pornographic images. It actually makes the front page headline, but details says the Minister of Communications, Mrs. Esla Owusu-Ekofo, has cautioned the public against sharing pornographic images, especially on social media and through electronic mediums. She stated that sharing pornographic images is against the laws of Ghana, asking anyone who receives them to delete and not share. How many of us would receive pornographic materials and delete really on the spot? Most of us, almost all of us, will quickly put it on the group that you're on, and then it goes round and round and round. Sometimes it finds its way even on Facebook. Well, she was speaking at the Child Online Protection Conference in Accra on Wednesday. She said, quote, "We also quite happily share pornographic images of children when we receive them with all our comments." So details of that story in the Finder newspaper. Corruption is a flashing signal that something is wrong. Yeah, definitely. But this time it's a former governor of the Bank of Ghana who's saying this, Dr. Polakwa. Yeah, okay. All right, so that's it for the Finder newspaper. Of course, they do have lots of stories in the paper.
Daily Dispatch says lawyer asked to pay 200,000 cedis by today, and the details are in there for calling.
What did he do?
Upon Judas Iscariot.
Oh gosh.
For calling Kwabena Japan, the suspended General Secretary of the Democratic Party.
Judas Iscariot. Is it a court case?
That is what it appears to be.
Okay.
The details of that story is inside. But new NPP vigilante group Party Royals beat up assembly members. And there's a photograph of Asante Apietu, the Inspector General of Police. I saw one story that had to do with the Interior Minister. It's actually captured on the front page of the Today newspaper.
On this lawlessness that's
he's daring the president, actually. He says, "Sack me if I fail."
Oh, sack me if I fail.
If I fail, yeah. So he's talking about how he thinks he can deal with the internal challenges that are facing, and that if he fails at it,
he can deal or he's dealing.
He can and he should and he must be dealing with it. I mean, it's
for how long should we wait
across the country.
But the point is that like there's a structure. So who is failing? Because I will not quickly jump and say Interior Minister. Is the police force doing enough?
I think it's failing at all levels. Because if the Interior Minister is saying that sack me, it means that if he knows that if the president thinks at this point that he has failed, he should have sacked him.
I don't think he has failed. I think it's police, honestly.
You can't take out the role of the political actors in all of this.
Yeah. No, you cannot.
You
but the man who sits at the apex of that political structure is asking you to deal with them.
Yeah. But you see, when he gives that order, it goes down to the IGP. The IGP also has to tell them his men to act. He tells them. But we all know of cases where people try to apprehend persons who belong to political parties. We know of transfers. They are moved all across the country. you may be in Accra, you are moved out there to the hinterland. Simply because you are trying to enforce the laws. So some of these police guys, they are scared. They cannot act. Yesterday we had a Director of Public Affairs, ACP Eku, tell us point blank that the challenge has to do with dealing with some of these guys who belong to the political party. He admitted it's very difficult for them.
It's a shame that we are here, because what it means is that the politicians, and we're not even talking about executives of the political parties, we're talking about constituency people.
They are very powerful in the
Yeah,
constituency.
they are.
They are.
And they are more powerful than the police, because that's where we are now.
Yeah.
If nobody can do anything to them, really.
By
it's
a simple
shame.
phone call, they can get you moved from that area.
It's a shame.
If you refuse to.
Shame on to all those who are in powerful positions. So they think that if somebody makes a complaint, they can just put a phone call through and transfer somebody. They'll come back and haunt you, really.
But as a nation, it's time we try to find a means of resolving this once and for all. It really doesn't help much. And yesterday when we heard the news that they are attacked a NADMO office, I mean, I heard the Peace Council.
They're attacking everywhere.
I heard the Peace Council chair yesterday, and you could hear the frustration in his voice.
Yeah.
He said that, in fact, if the IGP needs to be sacked, he has to be sacked because he has a police council he reports to. Nothing seems to be changing.
That's true. All right, so we're through with the papers, are we?
The last one here is on the front page. Women misses court again is being reported by the Today newspaper. If you don't know women, then you may be new in Ghana. But we have been told that lawyers for the judgment debtor and embattled businessman Alfred Agbesi Women yesterday told the Supreme Court that he was still ill and was unable to attend court. We have been told that they presented yet another excuse duty document to the single Supreme Court justice asking for an adjournment.
Joseph, you go to the courts like on a daily basis. For how long can you keep presenting an excuse?
It gets
Though
to,
it has
when
to
you
do with
when you
your
come
health.
with the excuse duty, the judge will be reasonable enough to grant it.
For how long can you do that?
When it becomes one too many, that is when the judge will decide to turn a blind eye to it, and at which point the person who wants you to appear in court, in which case is the Attorney General, may want to ask for a bench warrant to be issued for your arrest because you simply don't want to show up.
Can you drag somebody who's on a sick bed to the courts?
If there's evidence that the person is not sick and is trying to dodge the court, I mean, the court will not have any option than to grant it. But I mean, the court is being lenient with a businessman, even though a majority of Ghanaians, or many Ghanaians, or some Ghanaians may not entirely agree. They feel that that's taking too long
it's the law.
to get the money.
It's the law. So the law must take its course. And if this is it,
we don't have any choice than to just watch it.
Joseph, I'd like to say thank you, unless you want to hang out with us, because we have some powerful breakfast that's coming up.
I'll be around. I'll be around.
I see that some of you are sending me messages already. You're encouraged to send me regular text messages and WhatsApp messages as well. We've got to take a breather.